Hello everybody, I'm drunk, and you know what to do when you're drunk. Explain Regex. Regex. In case you didn't know what Regex is, it's an amazing way to handle strings. Usually, you would use something like string find or in string. I'm not sure what it is by default because I use a library. Matter of fact, I'm going to show that off right now. A string library by Descolada, which I'm going to leave a link to in the description. So for that reason, I don't really remember what it is by default, but something like in string to check if something is in a string. Then string replace, I think, which is just replace in this library, to replace something. But you need to provide an exact string, which might not always be what you want. Sometimes you want to provide a pattern, and exactly for that you use Regex. First of all, if you don't know Regex, you should check out a video that will come up right now on the top right of your screen. And after you do that, you might think, well, how do I use this in AutoHotkey? Well, in pretty much every language you can use Regex in one way or another. If you come from some other language, you probably already know how to use it there. But in AutoHotkey, it can still be pretty confusing. Matter of fact, when you start out, how to use Regex is more annoying to understand than Regex itself. I'm partly lying, but still an important thing to remember. Alright, so I have this file where I wrote down some stuff, and there are two numbers that I want to catch. So let's try the Regex for that and see how this shit works. So Regex match, that's the function that you use to check whether a pattern is in a string. So the haystack is actually the string that you want to check in. In this case, I wrote in my output channel, or rather output text file. So we're gonna read file, a custom function that I made, point to file, or rather paths points to file, and then output. But usually you would file open with the read property and then jump, or rather seek, to the start of the file and then read. All that annoying shit, but in my text library, once again, I leave a link to all of my libraries in the description, but more specifically, I leave a link to my GitHub repo, GitHub profile in my description. If you go to lib-v2, you get all of my libraries that I use. And in this library, I have write file, append file, and read file, which does what you would imagine them to do, but in an easier syntax for you to not have to worry about file open, file object seek, file read. You just read the file and go on with your day. So I think I've explained those in a previous video, which is why I'm not going to explain them anymore. So we got the string that we want to Regex match, and now needle Regex. This is actually the Regex that we want to use. So in this situation, third file, not fourth, I want to catch three numbers, 1, 2, 3, and also these 4, 5, 6. So I need this and this. Great. So how are we going to do this? Through groups. So first of all, we do a group of digit, digit, digit. That's how you do in Regex. Great, that's the first group. Now we go and check to see what else we need. I just noticed that my terminal is missing. Usually it's on the fourth page, but right now it isn't. Strange. Doesn't matter. So now what we actually need to do is match these characters as well before the second number. The way to do this, the stupid and don't do this kind of way, is this. When you actually learn regex, in case you don't know it yet, you'll figure that out. But that's my usual solution. It's not really that good. It leads to bugs potentially, but it's good enough for a test, because what I want to show off right now is not how to use regex, or rather, not how to know regex, it's how to use regex in AutoHotkey. So right now we selected these characters, and now we can create the second group of the other three numbers. DDD. Boom. Great. So unfortunately, you would expect this to return something that is actually useful in getting that match, because currently the match you're seeking for is three numbers, anything in between, and then another three numbers. Well, the thing is, you don't know what those are. I guess in this situation you do, but usually you kinda won't, and you might actually want to know the precise thing that you caught with your regex. So it's reasonable to think then that this function would return the match object or match whatever of that. No, it's not the case. It works stupidly instead. So what it actually returns is whether it caught anything or nothing. That is not fucking useful information to me. I guess it is, but let me get to that. What it returns right now is true if it caught something, and false if it didn't catch anything. Alright, sounds good. But what about the match object? Wouldn't it be better to return that instead? Okay, you might make the argument that, okay, but we can return true or false to do this structure. If, and then we do the regex match, but I'll just use object for this case, and then we do our code, because it just returns true or false. All we need to put in is the actual variable. We don't need to compare it to anything else. All we need to do is just if object, then it's all good. So for that reason, it doesn't return the match object. So that is a reasonable thing to think, but it's wrong, because in AutoHotkey, an empty object is false and a filled object is true. I am pretty fucking sure. So there's no reason for regex match not to return an object, a match object which you actually want. The way to reach it usually is through doing this. You pass by reference to a variable called match, and now match is actually the object that you need. It's really stupid, and once again, the string library that I showed off to you earlier solved this issue. And matter of fact, it was because of my pull request that regex match and regex replace for strings got implemented. And now it actually returns the match instead of the amount of matches. Okay, so let's delete everything here because we don't need the amount of matches, we need the match object. So we use groups, right? So this group and this group, first, second. Great. What if we actually want to get everything from this number, including that number, everything in between, and this number, also including. Well, it has this strange syntax of brackets, but nothing in between them. Kinda strange, but you can see that when we do an infos of that and then run the test script, it indeed shows what we expect. 1, 2, 3, and also these 4, 5, 6. That's the entire match. So if you put square brackets but nothing in between them, that's the entire match of your regex. But what if you want a specific group? So in this case, maybe you want the first group, so the first 3 numbers. In this case, you put a number there. And once again, we test 1, 2, 3. That is indeed the first group of regex. Perfect. And then, as you can imagine, if we put in 2, we get the second group. That's not the right hotkey. This one is, though, and that is indeed the second group which we searched for. So to get to groups, you use square bracket syntax, and here you go, essentially. And that's how you use regex, by using the third by reference variable to get the object, or by using Descolada's string library that fixes this issue where if you use regex match or regex replace as a method, it instead returns the match object instead of the amount. Okay, so what if what we want to do is get this entire string and replace, let's replace and with really big penis. Let's do that. So, regex, regex replace. And now we will change the actual regex. It will be 3 numbers. And so first the string, then the regex, and then what we replace it with. So we replace it with really big penis. Perfect. But in this situation, we actually do need to return a value. Let's call it value then. So now we show that value. Does it work? I once again pressed the wrong hotkey. I didn't press a hotkey now. Now I did. And oh, I forgot. I caught the 3 numbers again when I expected to catch n, but it doesn't really matter because it worked the exact same way. I caught the first 3 numbers and replaced them with really big penis. Fuck, I have a funny accent with that. And notice how the second set of 3 numbers also got replaced. So regex replace not only replaces the first occurrence, it actually replaces every occurrence of your pattern. That is not the case with regex match because it only returns the first match that it found. So, really important to remember. But yeah, once again, use the string library by Descolada, so working with strings is more, well, overall better. And now the big question, why regex? I mean, when you really look at it, I mean, what is this? Fucking \d \d. It makes no sense. It's not obvious, it's not readable. Why would you use regex? Well, the reason for that is once you learn a bit of regex, you can solve so many issues with regex that it actually becomes a really powerful tool. The beginning tools you have, stuff like substring, in-string, string replace, they're very specific, and it's not really viable to do like 10 string replaces for every number, for example. And that's even kinda good. No, it's not, but like it's okay if you don't know regex. But the situation might grow very fast. So I have this file that has wrappers that I want to discover, right? And in this case, what I wanted to do is select the date, the time, and the dash. That's perfect, but let's go to artists. No, I guess they're called favorites. Yeah. In this case, we also have the date, but before that, we have one dot space and then no time. Because for favorites, it doesn't really matter what time I decided they were my favorite, the day only matters. So I want to catch this whole thing and this whole thing at the same time. If I used in string or string replace or something of that nature, I wouldn't be able to do that. With regex though, pretty easy. If I can find that. It's somewhere in my app /shows.hk thing. I don't remember, but essentially the idea is that I could do it pretty damn easily. Maybe it's in my get library. Once again, don't remember, and it only matters if you're actually trying to do it, not as an example. And another thing, I think I've shown this off multiple times. I have a hotkey that shows me the current weather in an info. This is once again done by regex. How? I sent a HTML request to a website with weather that I trust, and it returns me the HTML. Well, HTML by itself is not really that useful. I mean, depends on the situation, but I want to catch some text or some number that is essentially around some other words, numbers, or symbols. I can't use in string for that, but I can use regex for that. And that's exactly what I do. The code that you're looking at is this whole thing that gets the temperature, the wind speed, that's a good question. I don't even know what this number is. Wetness, I guess. I don't fucking know. And the overall atmosphere, I guess. And if you're not a script kiddie, which you might be, I understand. You can see that this code is pretty bad because what I do is use regex to fix my issue instead of actually fixing it well. And this brings me to my last point. While regex is incredible and very, very useful, it can often become a solution to a lot of your problems when you can't figure it out in a more robust way. You can use regex to fix your issue, but badly. Why? Because you're probably not going to write perfect regex. And even if you do, that regex might be way too good. And actually, it may make you play into your disadvantage. So whether you create a regex too simple, you lose. You create regex too difficult, you lose. So beware of situations like this function, where you use regex to fix your issue. To be fair, once I wrote it, it has never bugged. Not a single error. I am very surprised. Usually not the case. So consider that once again. but often if you use Regex to fix your issue will not be properly fixed. Alright, that's about it for this video, and if you enjoyed it, press a like, type some comments, maybe you have a question or a suggestion, definitely subscribe so you don't miss my content, but most importantly, stay fresh, cheese bags, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!